So I see a lot of people panicking about the tier 4 visa changes that has been made by the UKVI or the UK government. Two major changes that has been made over a very short period of time. I think between May to June or May to July, two major changes were made to the tier 4 visa and left a lot of people worried and panicking, not knowing the way forward. Today I'm going to be presenting to you solutions to these major incidences or challenges that can still help you switch from tier 4 visa to tier 2 visa successfully without any issues at all. If you're wondering who I am and you're coming across my channel for the first time, hi, my name is Becca. I'm a migrant nurse originally from Ghana in West Africa. I practice, I live and I work in London. On this channel, basically, I talk about nursing, I do lifestyle videos, I share vital information to migrants like myself so that we are pre-informed, we are guarded, and we know what to do at what time. So the UKVI introduced two major changes, and the first change was to stop dependent visas to be granted to tier 4 visa holders. So that means that if you're a student and you're coming to the UK to study, you cannot bring your dependent with you, which is your spouse and your children, effective January 2024. The second major change that happened was that effective July 17th, 2023. So this announcement was effective the very day that it was announced, which was July 17, 2023. You can no longer switch from tier 4 to tier 2 visa until you have finished your study. So even if an employer is happy to grant you a tier 2 visa sponsorship or a certificate of sponsorship for a tier 2 visa, whilst you are still in a tier 4 visa, you cannot switch until you have finished the course. So the tier 2 visa sponsorship date should start from the last day that you are finishing your course upwards. However, there are solutions. You know, in this world, for every problem there is a solution, and that is why people like us are here to tell you that yes, you can still switch visas successfully from tier 4 to tier 2. The first one I'd like to talk about here is to let your dependent switch, because there was nowhere in the visa category that stated that your dependent cannot switch visas. So your dependent is not bound by anything. It is you, the main applicant, who is bounded. So when you have a dependent who is already here with you, or you have not brought your dependent but you have a dependent home, you have from now, August, as I'm filming this video, to December to still bring your dependent into the UK. What you can do is that when your dependent comes, especially the dependent who are skilled, you have a dependent who is probably an engineer, a chef, a nurse, a health assistant, an IT specialist, a data analyst, a customer service personnel, anything at all. If that person has got a profession or a skill or knowledge or a qualification in something, or they are ready to help or assist, they can switch visas. So they can look for the tier 2 sponsorship visa, and when they have got the sponsorship, you switch so that your dependent now becomes the main applicant and you become the dependent. That way you can still go on your study, or you can quit your study and be on your dependent visa. It doesn't really matter. So that when you have finished with your studies, you will be on your dependent visa and you will still continuously live in the UK and can apply for indefinite leave to remain after 5 years. That is good, isn't it? So that is one route I am giving to you. The second route is to leave the UK and come back, reapply to re-enter the UK. I know this may sound a bit tricky, but here is it, yeah? So you are in the UK, you're on a tier 4 visa, yeah? You have had a job, your employer is happy to give you the tier 2 sponsorship. Irrespective of the fact that you're on tier 4, they are so happy to work with you. Some people have that grace. People like them naturally. You meet somebody that is still happy to help you, give you the sponsorship, even when you have not finished your study. You are panicking because you can no longer switch, because from effective July 13th or no, July 17th, this thing took effect. What you can do is that you can accept the sponsorship, because once you lose that sponsorship, now sponsorship is difficult to come by. So if you get that sponsorship, do not quit. You can quit your studies. Yeah, there is nowhere in the clause that stated that you cannot quit your studies and you cannot leave the UK to return. It didn't state anywhere. You can quit your studies, you can defer the course, you can go back home and reapply on that tier 2 sponsorship. Once you get that COS, you can leave the UK and reapply to enter the UK with that tier 2 sponsorship. I know that is good to be true. Oh yes. And the last but certainly not the least is that if you do not have a dependent yet, you can get your dependent to come in, you have now to December. As I said, if your dependent is no longer here, so the first one I talked about is when your dependent is already in the UK, you can do this. Let your dependent switch. If your dependent is no longer here, or your dependent is not here yet, you can get them to come in. You can get dependents from now to December, and once your dependent comes in, you have forfeited that first clause because they've already entered before December. Now they can switch to tier 2 sponsorship, and then you can be on your visa sponsorship. The fourth route that I'm going to be talking about is that if you are single and you've got a partner here who is already settled, after your studies, you guys can decide to come together, you legalize your marriage or relationship, and then you can switch from your visa to your dependent visa who already has settlement in the UK. So there is always a solution to a problem, and I felt like sharing this with you guys because people were asking the way forward after these major changes were made, and I had to speak to people to be sure that there was solution, and that is how I came across these solutions, and I hope it's going to benefit somebody who may need it. And I wish you all guys the very best in your transitioning in whatever you are doing in the UK, and I wish you fruitfulness in whatever you are doing. And thank you guys so much for watching. Until we meet again in my next video, guys, it's bye.